Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to speak with a registered psychotherapist qualifying, recognized by the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario. She has successfully completed her Bachelor of Arts with honors in psychology from York University and her Master's in Counselling Psychology from Yorkville University. Although born and raised in Canada, coming from a Caribbean background has fueled her passion and lifelong interest in human abilities and behavior, including neurodiverse individuals and their families. She is also passionate about supporting and celebrating diverse cultures and spectrums of sexualities, focusing on being an ally to Black, Indigenous, and people of color, immigrants, and refugees. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Rhea Bridge. Thank you so much, Rhea, for joining us today. I really appreciate you driving a whole hour in Toronto traffic.
I know. Well, thank you for having me. I wouldn't drive out here for anybody, so thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Last Google search.
Oh, this morning we were watching Love is Blind. So what is it? The guy, he was like, check the receipts. So I was like Googling his Instagram to look at the receipts.
I have to tell you, we've been hearing about Love is Blind for the last 3 days.
It's a train wreck.
It's also very addictive.
It is.
Salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever pulled a prank on someone?
No, I'm pretty boring. I'm pretty vanilla, so no, not prankful.
A true professional.
You know?
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I am an introvert that presents as an extrovert.
Interesting. Yeah. I would have never known that you were an introvert. Yeah. You're good at pretending. No. Okay. Practice makes perfect, though.
You know?
When life throws you lemons.
You throw them back.
Fair enough. If you had to write a book, what would it be about?
Oh, boy. It would be about, I think, my life as a twin.
Oh, that's so cute. Actually, I'd love to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. How is your life as a twin?
It is, it's good. Growing up, we were very close. And, when you go through the adolescent stage, you're kind of changing. And then we grew apart a little, but we're super close now. We have so much in common. And part of being a twin is finding your own identity and your own friends. And that was difficult, but I think for us, me and my sister, we figured it out. So
that's actually amazing. I never thought of the additional layer into the dynamic of being a twin. And, sometimes it can go really well in terms of companionship, but then it can also be very rivalrous.
Well, and the thing is, it's Rhea and my sister Trisha. It's always,
right.
You're always together. It's not me as a person or her as a person.
Right. Well, it's hard to separate you two, especially for the first, 10 to 15 years of your life?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. That's awesome. I never thought about that. Who inspires you most and why?
Who inspires me the most? There's a few people. I would say my mom. I would say my husband and my kids. Just because they're so important to me.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you evolved your career and what you do today?
Okay, so I started working in the field of autism, and I stayed there for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Started working as an instructor therapist, and then moved in-center, and then moved from in the in-center into working in the school. Okay. They call it a Section 23 classroom. So trying to integrate the kids into the school and get them going to class, and that was a wonderful experience, really learning how the school works and seeing the kids in a different environment for me, I think, was really amazing. And then from there, I became a supervisor, and then really having the responsibilities as not only looking after, the kids clinically and making those decisions, but being more integrated with the families and having to build that rapport with families. And that was for me where I kind of felt like I wanted to do more, but I couldn't because that was outside of my role in terms of the family. And sometimes the dynamics were difficult, and I didn't have really the skills or knowledge to help them work through some of these things. So for me, I decided, I think it's time for a change. So I decided to pursue my master's in counseling psychology, and
Good for you.
did that. I think it was a 2.5-year program with an 8-month practical portion, like working with clients with the supervisor close by, and here we are. Like now, thank you. Now I'm out here working. So. Okay, so in terms of working with me, I do free 15-minute consultations because I think it's important for people to really have a good feel for the person they're working with.
An interview with your therapist.
For sure. And I want people to know they have that power to say yes or no to someone. Just because I'm your first call doesn't mean I'm the best call for you, right?
Agreed.
I would love to work with you. But if we're not mixing, well, maybe there's someone else that's a better match. Obviously, I would love you to work with me. But being sensical, sometimes personalities don't match. Sometimes maybe the issues that you're coming in with are outside of my scope. So it'd be in your best interest if I maybe referred you to someone else. I do a 15-minute referral. In that 15 minutes, I just kind of want to find out really, what currently is going on and why are you seeking therapy? Like, we don't need to get into like super detailed, but give me like a general, like, what's going on, right? Is it anxiety? Is it family stuff? Is it depression? Like, what is it exactly? And also in that time, I like to kind of figure out or ask people, what are some goals? If you could, have some goals for therapy, what would they be? They don't need to be, full thought out, just a general idea.
Right.
What do you want to work on? And then from there, I tell them a little bit about myself. And if they have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer those. Once we finish that, if they want to continue work with me, they give me the go-ahead. I'll send intake forms. Once they fill in the intake forms, we can get the ball rolling and, do our first session. Our first session would be an intake session. So the intake session's a little bit different than your regular therapy session in terms of it's really finding out more the background stuff, like who you are, because we're strangers, right, at this point. So it's really finding out, who are you as a person, like where did you grow up, like maybe talking about your family, your friends, your work, as well as the current issues that are going on in your life. I also like to find out about current level of functioning. So, what's your sleep like? What's your eating patterns like? Those sorts of things, because yes, I'm not a, nutritionist or whatever, but sometimes if someone's skipping meals, okay, maybe that's why this is playing into this or that. Just getting a full picture of what's going on. If you're only sleeping an hour a night, okay, maybe that explains some other stuff, or maybe that's making this part of our work difficult. So talking about those sorts of things too, I think, in that intake. And then once we do our intake, we just go into regular therapy sessions after. So I like to tell people, just be you, just come in. I know sometimes there's nerves in the first real therapy session, but I often kind of start with what do you need today? Right? What's on your mind today? And
do you find that helps break down the nerves a little bit for future sessions?
For sure, right? It helps disarm people, and I was like, okay, this is not, I don't have to bare my soul in this first session.
Right.
No, you don't have to bare your soul. You don't have to go to therapy, telling everybody your deepest, darkest secrets. It's not, the first thing we do off the bat, right? If it's important for our work, at some point, maybe we'll get there.
Right.
But, I like to do it gently, slowly. We build up to things. And part of the process, the important part of the process is the relationship between therapist and client, so that we call it the therapeutic alliance. And that's one of the things that really, I think, is important for change and for growth in the client space. Because you have to trust the person you're telling these things to.
That was my next question. My next question was really about trust. How do you build that trust with your client? Because there is a huge stigma about, she's a stranger. I don't want to tell her all my business. So how do you build that trust? How do you make them feel safe? How do they even know they're safe with you?
Well, I think for me, I use my personality. I bring my authentic self into the therapy space, and I'm not all buttoned up and okay. Because people think that's what people think therapists are, and they're so afraid to go into the therapy room and be like, this person's a robot, and they don't really care about me and what's going on, and they just want a paycheck. No, this is not what I do. I bring my personality. You're human. Listen, people, your therapist is human too, and don't let them fool you otherwise. They're real people with lives, and they're people.
I've seen her dance at weddings, by the way.
At at the end of the day, they're real people. And I think it's important to remember that. And bringing myself as a therapist and a person into the space, I think helps people trust me as a therapist. And I think also being honest with clients when I'm, working with them, and sometimes they'll see something. I'll be like, can we pause a second? Like, I'm noticing something. Are you noticing this? Just drawing their attention to things that maybe they're not seeing or feeling, or maybe they are and they're scared to say, like, oh, I'm feeling this way. And, also I like to tell clients, when I'm working with you, if I see that maybe you're upset or uncomfortable, I might ask you if you're okay, if there's something you need from me to do for you in the session, or, do you want me to stop talking? Do you want me to have a quieter voice? Do we need a hand signal? Like, what is it that you need? So, really getting clients to tell you what they need, I think is a great way to build that trust and let them know that you are there for them and you do care about what happens to them, and they are real people with real problems, and everybody has problems. That's the other thing, just validating their feelings and be like, that is hard and that does suck.
Right.
And any normal person in this whole world would be like, yeah, that does suck.
Right.
And maybe you're not the only person going through whatever it is you're going through. So I think normalizing their experience as well, I think, is really important in the therapeutic space. And 9 times out of 10, there's other people experiencing what you're experiencing.
I love that, because it makes you saying that you're human, you've got problems.
Yeah.
It makes you that much more relatable for the average human being. So thank you for being very honest about that. Stigmas. I really want to talk about that, because for a lot of people, it might not be about trust or being prepared. For others, it's just breaking down that stigma. Yeah. So, I hear a lot of people sometimes say, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need therapy. I want to try and break down that stigma a little bit. Why do you think it exists?
Looking at the society we live in, I think currently social media plays a large part in that. And, everything looks perfect and, filtered, and we're expected to be these perfect robots that fit in this box. And when people don't fit in that box, oh, well, there's something about that Gabriella. She's not quite normal. She's not that, and none of that's true about you. Just saying. But you know what I mean? There's that plays into it too. And the pressure, I think, in society. And for someone to say, oh, I'm taking meds. Like, what? You're taking meds? Like, don't say that. Don't tell anybody that. Well, why?
Why not?
Why not?
Right.
If you need meds to function, then who cares?
Absolutely.
Right?
If I have pain, I want medication. And trust me, I don't like taking medication in general. But if I have severe, excruciating pain, give me those pain meds. And it's the exact same thing for mental health, is it not?
Yeah. And, listen, whether you're taking meds or not taking meds, I don't really care, right? I will work with you either way. For me, it's just important for you to know that if you are on meds and you've made that choice, I'm going to respect that choice, and that's fine, and that's great, and we can still work together. And you shouldn't be, made to feel ashamed, or you shouldn't made to feel guilty because you're taking meds, right? And I think that's part of, the stigma about mental illness is don't talk about it, don't tell anybody about it. And especially the other element too is that cultural piece, right? So, especially I find this in BIPOC individuals with, parents that may be immigrants coming from whatever country, and they're like, I worked hard, I made this life for you, and you can't manage because you're sad, just get up and go to work, right? Not realizing that is such a harmful thing to say to someone who's depressed, just get up and go. Well, they physically can't get up and go, so then what does that tell them about themselves, that they're lesser than, or they're not worthy because they can't just do it like everybody else? And who's to say, who is it, like, you have to do it like everybody else? That's boring to be like what's the saying? If you could be someone, be Batman, because being whatever, you know what I mean? What is the saying? I'm messing it up.
I don't know it, but now I want to know.
If you could be someone, be Batman, because it's just such a unique person, right? I think the idea behind that is be you and be unique. And, the stigma of don't talk about mental illness and don't take your meds. And, when people listen to family members that are saying, oh, well, that Gabby, because they don't understand how
Right.
harmful some of these things are. And it puts such pressure on people to be perfect all the time because they feel they can't be themselves and they can't talk about mental illness. Like, mental illness is not a bad word.
Right.
Right. And it has that connotation that it's something dirty or something that we shouldn't talk about. And that's not true. And for me, it's important to really talk about that stuff. And, especially for people who are BIPOC and where their communities don't really allow the freedom to speak freely sometimes about these things. And they're made to feel, like I said, ashamed. And it's just not a good feeling. So, I think the major things we're looking at here is like social media influence, like, I think family also influences with culture. And then even like people, the third thing I think is internalizing that stuff too. As a person, you feel like you're not living up to society's expectations. You're not living up to family's expectations. So that all those three things I think mixed together play a huge role in this mental health stigma we have.